Just to check in advance, are you able to see the screen at the current time?
Yes, I've got it.
You got it. All right, great. How's your morning been so far, Amy?
It's been a long week already. I'm sure the same for you guys.
Yeah, that's kind of the default question, is their default answer both ends these days. So.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Amy, I know you've already spoken to one of our sales directors, James. Is that correct? You guys spoke approximately a month ago on January 31st.
Yes, that's correct.
Would you mind, of course we have everything relayed from him internally. Would you mind relaying how that conversation went in your mind? I suppose what the big point of interest was on your end and the state we're at this time?
So I think the big thing from talking to James and me is it sounds interesting as far as things that they offer and being able to see how this sort of data capture could be more used by our clients. I think one of the things that I'm a bit of a concern about is, although the video capture is very cool, ultimately clients are looking for high-level stat-centric insights with low-level engagement. So even though it would be neat to see how X person is actually engaging with the site, ultimately they're interested first in that macro data. So I think that what we were looking for as far as next steps was, one, to see how your system works, and two, to learn more about your specific NPO experience. There was a bit of talk about how a lot of religious charities were using this, but given our client base.
Amy, you're breaking up a bit. Is there any way on R2, I don't know if there's any miscommunication. Are you on a speaker? Is it just a little unclear?
Is that better?
Yeah, that's a lot better. Thanks. If you don't mind repeating that last sentence. I heard everything up to, there was also talk of, and that's where we were cut off.
There was a lot of talk about how this is being used with you guys with the religious charity market, but given who our client base is, obviously our interest is more in a broad use of some larger NPOs. So also seeing examples specific to that.
All right, yeah, that's a pretty good summary. So now that's usually what we get pretty standard is, I understand how deep I can dig here on a micro level basis. You're giving a lot more insight about an individual user. But once again, for assuming that you're referencing clients with higher traffic level, they're a lot more interested in the macro usage, where the micro usage is kind of a convenience and to solve particular problems. Is that kind of where you're at, Amy?
That's correct.
Okay. If you wouldn't mind telling me, Amy, from your clients, when you mention higher traffic, is there a particular traffic level you guys are usually at, I guess, or do you guys have retail clients, or is it more? I have a lot of notes from James on being charity-based. Would you mind clearing that up for me?
So all of our clients are nonprofit. We don't have any commercial clients.
Okay, all of them are nonprofit. And most of them are. When you say a higher level traffic site, most of them are getting a significant amount. You're looking at macro data almost exclusively on their end.
Again, just to be clear, our clients don't necessarily have the time or the resources to be able to look. Like if they're getting, even say 1,000, which is obviously not true, but even say they're getting 1,000 people to view their website a month, they don't have the time to look at each individual video. So even though on some level that's interesting, ultimately what's of interest is macro level trends that they're being able to dig down deeper.
Okay, no problem. And also on that note, I know he had mentioned that we also provide services on that end. Probably about 50% of the cases we do get requests on the early end for a 3-month period to basically ask us to show the stats once accumulated of what's added value on a macro basis. Was there interest as well as your company's end, if there was interest to have it as a servicing end to deliver reports that are pre-generated? Or is that something you guys do usually on the Chapman end?
It could be of interest. I think it really depends on what uniquely before going on mass.
All right. No problem. Yeah, I think thanks a lot for the for that clarification on your end. I want to start by saying when it comes to anything macro-based or understanding the usage of our product, aside from the videos, what's usually a point that's, to be perfectly honest, missed with a couple salesmen. You know, I do have a more of a technical background, me as well as Inad, when we're having this discussion, is aside from the videos, assuming that, you know, it's pretty clear that we're able to recreate everything that happens on the site. It's pretty clear that you can look at any particular segment. You know, if you want to look at clients who've had a problem and you want to look at a particular segment on a video, all of that usually isn't hard to get across. What takes a second to get across is the fact of how we're creating these videos. Are you able to see your site right now, Amy?
Yeah.
Okay. So our videos are all created off of storing approximately 1,000 times as much data as Google Analytics, as Omniture, IBM, you know, most of the mainstream competitors in the market. So in practical terms, what this basically means is if someone goes on your site and they're stuck on the top right portion for a few seconds and they leave your website, we have a record of where their mouse was at that time, and we allow you to kind of look at that record. I want to see people who move their mouse in the corner of my website. I want to see all of the traffic who had that same problem. If you have a scenario where someone fills out a contact page, let's say, and someone says, hi, they put in an email, and they say, I would like to contact your company about, and they delete it. And let's say they have a website-related error now where they couldn't finish submitting their information. We're storing their typing speed, the movement that happened, all of the past traffic activity by this exact same client, as well as the average time it takes to, you know, fill out the form and complete your form. The point of this is in cases where it's a user-based error that causes them after they've submitted information, you still have that information. They're labeled as an abandoned visitor, and you can look up your history and get as deep as you want into every little action seen on your site. You know, if someone selects Montgomery Street with their mouse, all of these things are being stored and searchable in a record to be integrated with your traditional analytics, and basically allows us to get a deeper microscope on that end, even aside from being able to play the visual record from any of these points. Did that make sense, Amy?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so the point being there is, yeah, just on the analytics point alone, particularly when you want to dig into a particular segment or section. Are you guys use conversion funnels often, Amy? Is that something you guys, I guess, is normal use on your end?
More as it might relate to like Google Analytics, but that's not necessarily something we've been able to go into as in depth as maybe we would like, which is part of the reason why, you know, that's where I'm looking for you guys to make a case point of how we would then go to the client and say, hey, for those of you who are already robustly using Google Analytics, and even then using it to its fullest capability, what is the value of, you know, spending more money and using a platform or a program like yours?
No problem. Yeah, so your biggest issue is, of course, the internal sell to your clients because you're an agency, correct?
Yep.
No problem. All right. Yeah, I'll make a couple points on that end. We'll see if they click or not on yours. So the first point I'll mention with the videos themselves is a way that agencies are traditionally using our product in addition to just using the videos for their own insight is if you're generating a report for a client by default and you make such as you let the client know that they're having an issue with mobile traffic. Mobile traffic has a high bounce rate on their end. We're able to export each of our individual videos to attach to any kind of report or document. So a lot of times that they use it kind of on the romanticist end to verify what they're saying. And a lot of times when it comes to marketers in a boardroom less than IT people, that resonates a lot better to show them what their problems are. So that's just one point of interest for agencies sometimes is to basically be able to justify their claims and say, as you can see here, you would be able to white label on your end. You wouldn't have to mention OOPGO. You say we're using a technology that actually gives us deeper analysis into here. Let me show you an example of a couple of customers who had this experience. And that's just one point of interest I usually bring up. So. Aside from that, I don't know whether on my screen right now, what I'm just going to be showing you is our basic organization system of how we kind of manage our website traffic. That makes things simple, even though we're storing a lot more data and showing more information here. I'm going to use your site as an example here, but if this was a client site and they saw, for instance, they were getting a lot of people who came from Canada, who visited their site at least 10 times, who are pretty close to completing what the goal on the website is. In your case, it might be filling out a contact form. They're getting pretty close, but they see that they keep dropping out. They want to take a closer look at that individual segment. What we're able to do in that case is you can create an individual label such as struggling customers. We have a color coding system, so if you want to label every struggling customer in yellow, and you want to declare any pattern that has to do with what defines a struggling customer. Once you do this within our system, I'm going to cut straight to the view of where this displays. Once you do this within our system, what we're able to do is on all of your individual website traffic visits, we use this as a searchable filter to look at the traffic itself. So your clients, in a simple way, once they declare a color, can say, I only want to see clients who had this happen, who had a usability struggle, who came from China and had a problem, and it would give each of those clients individual history from one view. So that's just kind of an example of what our main search system is within our system to use all of this extra data, is being able to define those rules in a much clearer way. I'm going to walk you through one more example on this, and just to kind of clarify this from the starting point is, if you guys are used to using the Google Analytics, is if you have a starting point here that has particular statistics listed, and we want to play any of these statistics, I'm able to take a look at each. In this case, this is a picture of each individual visit for your website traffic. So in this case, you know what people were looking for, where they came from. Your clients can kind of look at their important pieces of traffic. But we created this tagging system earlier. We can search and filter this down to any, this isn't a lot of blab, it's not a lot of technical details. You can choose any particular search criteria and then use that within your system to look at those, high value sections, to correlate how many sales were made in conjunction with this. In your case, how many people are completing any call to action that you specify. So I just wanted to show that to kind of show what the main organizational system is for us, especially when it comes down to clients who want simplicity. You can create your own metrics and search through them in that way. You have any questions on that end, Amy, or you?
I guess, again, what is of interest is the fact that you can specifically tag a specific particular behavior or particular site or placement on the site. I guess where I'm still confused in your presentation is that then pulling up a listing of all the individual pieces isn't ultimately going to be as useful for our clients as being able to, like, say, if instead of all of these video options and being able to watch the videos themselves, being able to graph or chart that trend over a period of time, for example. So I guess that's where I'm still a little bit lost.
No problem at all. I'll focus on that point exactly. I'll wait a second for the reporting dashboard. So yeah, so like I said, it's clear that you can dig down to those levels, take a look, but I'll take a step back here and look at our core analytics dashboard. Main difference between this dashboard here is our first step for any client we have that is included, out of the box as an offering, is to have them define what their 6 main KPIs are to list on this chart. So when you look at your site and you want to look at your macro-based data, if you said that I want my main stat of interest is people who move for 5 seconds within my contact form, fill out information, then leave, all of these numbers would be correlated to how many people had done this. This can be organized on any time increment, and this can also be customized if you want to create 10 to 15 of these in advance to play around with on the main dashboard and get that information, either on a weekly basis or a daily basis listed every time you log in. Any of these individual statistics, in this generic case of traffic source breakdown, if I want to click report, on any of these views. What we have is a view that shows the macro-based data in a way where you can change which graphic format it's in. You can download it in PDF, Excel, CSV, a few other formats. And if I'm taking a look at this individual format and I want to, we're using traffic sources this example, but for any analytic you chose, and I want to add mobile in comparison on that chart, we would create another simultaneous dashboard that shows the amount of people who came from mobile, who also came from the same analytic. And what you can do from there as well is you can email that directly to your clients. You can email that internally as well. And on the emails, we would also set up a couple defaults that would give access to an agency different than their clients if they both wanted to log in. Is that more along the lines of what you were looking for, ways of dispersing this data and looking in bulk, Amy? Is that clear, or is there still a big piece missing on our end?
No, I mean, that definitely shows the top line, although arguably some things on that macro of a level as far as what the stats are, something that they can get already through Google Analytics. So what would be of particular interest of me is, say there's something that they specifically want to track as a particular behavior on their site that you allow them to map through your platform. How can they similarly get sort of the top line performance or behavioral metrics without having to watch the individual videos? Because ultimately, like, as cool as it is to have those individual videos, the huge value is really going to be how you guys are able to extract data out of those videos and turn it into something that they can more easily manipulate.
Okay, yeah, and on these ends, the difficult part on our end is when it comes down to demonstrating, so we're storing in the initial metrics, the ones I showed as an example, traffic source is nothing special. Anyone can do that by storing each page. The difficulty on our end, to be honest, is the default stats we define on the more advanced level, they are going to be case per company because it's 1,000 times as much data. If I'm going to show you one example, it's not correlated directly to insurance, but this might clarify, I believe, what you're looking for. But the big point on our end is this is all customized beforehand to declare, like you said, you could create the metric of people who are moving around on the side of your site who end up leaving. Just the creation element behind that is our big step one is on the build internally. That's, okay, now we know what you want to see. Now that we have that, all the analytics you see are going to be correlated there. So I'm going to give this example. What this is here is part of our initial discovery process. We take the highest value section of your website. In this particular case, it's a contact form. And we go into defining the key point indicators. Usually with a form, it comes down to the average time within each field, the accuracy of filling out data, because if your clients are pressing delete a lot and changing what they have to say before submitting information, it usually either correlates to lack of confidence in the information they're filling out or confusion on the navigation end. So what I'm showing here is for a particular bank whose objective was to increase their closing rate on wealth management clients. What they did is they gave us this form and they said basically the same thing you said, show me how you can add value to this process because this is what we care about. So in simple terms, what we did here is we gave them the average time within each form that someone's actually clicking and typing information. We let them know a lot of statistics not shown here that come down to how often they press delete, how accurate the data is. And we defined a custom metric called confidence level, which said if you choose 3 different options before submitting information, we're going to assume that that meant your customer was 33% confident in the information he filled out. So this chart here is on the macro level. This was over tens of thousands of visits in this example. This isn't an individual session example to give the confidence level, and as well as abandonment rates after someone had already entered the form, how many people filled out the form without having to go back and change information, average time to completion. So these were the main metrics they were targeting, was reduce the average time to completion, reduce the time on their page before they fill out and begin engaging, their main call to action, filling out the form. And the last added bonus in our end, which made a huge difference on their conversion rate, was that they told us their problem after we came up with confidence was that they want to spend a significant amount of time upselling each client. They want to spend time upselling each client, but they found out that it's not worthwhile because of how few they were able to convert to a higher level. So what we did is we also created a metric that said if someone chooses a higher income level, and this could be applicable in your end for charitable donation, if one of your companies asks for instance, what are you potentially willing to donate on our end? If they chose a higher number, then they chose a lower number, we tagged those people individually and created metrics that said higher upsell chance. And the common sense there was, if I'm at a restaurant and I'm ordering a burger for $20 on a menu, and then I change my mind to order a salad for $10, there's a pretty good chance I have $20 in my pocket. So that particular scenario was, just an example of how deep we can go into these individual elements, and in their case, we created the form to reflect what they were looking for. And side note, I know you weren't talking about digging too deep, but in this case, we also customized. The only statistics they wanted was the cases where someone filled out information on that high value, well, I guess not the only, but in a different view, where they abandoned, where they didn't submit that information. That is exclusive to our company. We are the first product that does allow you inner form. Google, if you press submit or enter on any keyword, even on their website, that's when it's going to be stored. In our case, if someone writes, my name is Bob, and leaves the site without clicking submit, you have that information to use within your analytics.
So this sort of infographic that we're looking at right now, I assume this is a fixed piece. This is not dynamically updating?
It is dynamically updating. That link I'm showing you,
No, that one, this screen in particular.
This screen, I'll show it within our back end. Yeah, this might be easier to see. No, this is all dynamically updating data, everything you see.
Okay.
And on your end, this would be in real time. All of this information would be real time. But I mean, the big point here is, on our end, this is included. We include 10 hours of servicing by default on a client's end. And we use this time to come up with these after chatting with your organization for, usually it's a 40-minute chat. What are your KPIs? What's your goal you're looking to accomplish? Then we take a look, and this is all within our default analytics view. So all these stats can be used within the conversion funnels. They can be used as a tag, et cetera. But it does take a minute on these kind of discussions on our end, because I don't know what that stat's going to be for you, but that's as deep as we can go, which differentiates us.
So again, since this is being converted from live donor individual behavior, what is the delay, just out of curiosity? Is it like when I'm looking at that other form, that's the form analysis overview, is that a delay of like 24 hours? Is it a delay of more?
It's a delay of 0 seconds. In this case, I'll tell you, this particular form is dynamically updated. I'm not logging into the client's account. We don't have legal permission to do that. So this is a copied site. We call it bank thing. This, if you fill out information, this is going to be updated real time. Our entire product is updated in real time as well on that same premise. And obviously, that's why I kind of mentioned these videos. I'm creating these videos. Everything you see is also a piece of data. So if we're able to show the live view from videos, we're also able to store all that data and show it. That's what our asset is on our end.
So if this is constant, like these numbers are constantly moving around, if we were looking at it on the live connection to your client site, what is the capability of, say, I want to look at this for the first quarter only, or I want to look at this for January 1st to January 31st, 2013 only?
Well, in that case, I showed you the default reporting engine was traffic source breakdown. Once this metric is created here, these are all metrics that are being created now. So these metrics can all be, this is going to be within your reporting engine. This is going to be within, this case we did hard code this example, but in the actual backend you have a calendar where you can change the date. I can look at this information for anything that comes down to segmentation or filtering. I can guarantee you, right now from the views, that's all going to be from every analytic you get on our end, because it's all one data source on our end. It's not a pain point to have these searchable. So our difficulty is in cases we do sign NDAs with clients. In cases like this, we have to kind of make a mock-up. We can't use the live information. So.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and here's the example of how it would be, just the basic calendar. If you want to look for a particular segment, if you want to add a different metric, such as for a page. So all of that's in here, just this example. So. I know we're scheduled for half an hour now, Amy, so I'll just take a step back on your end and say, what are your thoughts of this? Did this clarify a couple points you had for practical usage and
Definitely the
differentiators?
latter. Definitely the latter half was much more helpful. And again, and I'm sure this is true for your other clients, even though it's neat to be able to watch the individual's behavior, ultimately it's about what a group of individuals is doing collectively that's similar, right? So that's where things like this are much more applicable and probably much more of a selling point, because that it does go beyond, you know, just being able to evaluate the final click behavior someone is doing on a site.
Yeah, as a whole, but I'll tell you the discovery phase is the last piece of that is within a conversion funnel, you know, I think this might, traditionally you go in a conversion funnel, and let's say that I see, okay, now I know that 5 people out of 100 aren't doing something I expected them to do. You know, that's great information. We got to go back to the marketing end and figure out how do I fix that problem. The big difference in our end, before you look at macro-based data, is for the conversion funnel example, because we have our conversion, so I'm going to pretend this is an actual KPI that matters to you, and I see that only 5 people are not following my funnel. In our case, the way our clients use this is to figure out, we have this link to the individual videos. So I don't want to see a video on everyone who enters my site, but if I can't figure out a pain point on my problem, look, this is actually a real scenario on our end. You know, my programmers tell me there's not a problem. On our end, website-wise, I go back to a conversion funnel. I see we had a website-related error that we're able to fix that we didn't know existed before. This was quite a while. So, you know, for your client's end, it just kind of lets you not mash your head together to figure out why. We answer the why, and that's usually what the videos give, only on high-value segments. So, of course, now that we did this, I'm going to go in and look up the error that was given and say how many other sessions were affected by this. Let me look at those stats. But I needed to watch the video to know to look there. So that's the you know, common sense. Also within heat maps as well. Are you familiar with heat maps by chance, Amy?
I am, but I would love to see that aspect of your system as well.
Let me show. Okay, I'll log in as I go. I believe in my testing, but I'll tell you the common sense before I show you is we have click heat maps and movement heat maps. Traditionally, heat maps, let's say that you saw 5 people or 10, 20 people are clicking on this top gray portion of your screen. You know, that's the point of a heat map, is understand. You're like, okay, great. Why did this happen? Is it usability? Do they think that I have an image here? You know, how do I solve this pain point? Our heat maps are directly linked to videos as well. So we answer those questions in small segments, and obviously if you see it's an issue that your site isn't loading correctly in mobile or in a particular browser, you're going to search through and say, how many other problems do I have in this browser? So I will show you this. So let me load this on my other screen. But that's just the point to answer the question. It takes a minute of, you know, how do you use this video data to uncover stats? Because obviously watching what someone do in a store is going to give more insight than a few statistics saying, you know, he picked up a bottle of milk left here and he put it down for some reason. So.
And are there certain demographic characteristics of the user that you're able to capture? Just out of curiosity.
We have 2 different third parties that we sync to. We have the client's company, we have the ISP that they registered with, the internet service provider, and we sync to 2 different third-party demographic services, which aside from, you know, we store their zip code, that's not as much deeper demographics, but we have all the information you can store from the visit, and we use 2 third-party data sources to say people from this location are usually, you know, female, this age, etc. We don't have that by default, but that's out of the box as well. I'll tell you, a lot of people, including myself, it's hard to sync because most of that information you get based off people's cookies is not 100% accurate. It's based off zip code or segment, and we've looked pretty deep into the source behind that. So I usually, you know, so if you guys want to take a look at that, of course you can. But 1 minute, I'm still pulling up this heat map we have. So the common sense next step example I showed here is on a particular heat map, I click the visitor number. Right there I click the visitor number, and now I go into the heat map mode. Or I'm sorry, into the video mode from it.
Right.
Well, I'm in my development environment. Give me a minute, please. Go ahead.
I just wanted to see, you know, like if you're looking at your site top line to begin with and not specific, users. That's what this is right now, right?
Yeah, this is top line. This is without segmenting any particular user.
Okay. So the red is so you said that there's heat maps and there's movement maps. Are we seeing both right now, or are we only seeing one?
You're seeing, I'm sorry, when I said they're both heat maps, we have click heat maps.
Okay.
What you're seeing now is raw
Right.
clicks. So yeah, you get the
Okay.
basis. Red is where there's more clicks. If it's pure blue, there's less clicks. We also have behavioral, and to be honest, I'm not sure I know the example on this fake site where it is. I might have to grab someone, but this is mouse movement listed here. So the difference here with mouse movement comes down to seeing movement patterns as a whole. So what's being reflected here in this red could be the mouse just moving back and forth for 2 seconds, and it would keep accumulating on one session. So,
okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And here's the calendar to choose duration. Yeah, I'm sorry, we're running a bit over now. I don't want to, if you have a hard meeting afterwards. So let me ask you at this point, what do you think, based on interest, what are your pain points internally, and is it relevant to talk a bit deeper? As an agency, we usually need to speak kind of to more than a couple people. It's dependent on, situation. But where do you think you guys are currently at in that regard?
I think it would, then the biggest thing, especially working in the NPO market, is just going to come to calls, and that's why they solely rely on the quote-unquote free tools is just because it doesn't add to their overhead or when they already have really tight budgets. So just out of curiosity, because I know some of the things that I was pushing you on, you had mentioned might be a little bit more custom tailored as opposed to part of the standard service. So out of those things that we talked about today, what is more custom as opposed to just part of the, standard initial sign-up?
One second, please. What's customized is these statistics, but these statistics is part of your additional sign-up as well. We do need to do them hourly, but in this case, as I said, we have 10 hours by default within our servicing, and assuming you don't have a 20-step, 20-step retail closing process, we're able to comfortably do this on any particular forms. So that's the point, is if you wanted to do this again and again and customize new statistics that are very deep, this is what's not out of the box and would be hourly. So we do have ways to do it. I'm not showing you if you have, I guess, the technical inside. We have ways to do this raw. We give you guys access to a database, but it's just not something that is clean when you want to go super deep, So.
Sure. For most part, for our clients,
I'm sorry, Amy, you're breaking up. You're breaking up badly again. I didn't hear the last sentence.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Aside from our clients who are going to have email sign-up forms that are pretty simple, like that one, for the most part, they are going to be more like more in the sense of it's a full transactional completion, so it is going to have a lot more fields than just that. Not necessarily 20, but not 4.
More fields is not a problem. 2 pages, 3 pages isn't a problem. 6 pages with a lot of dynamic form interaction. It's not even really a problem because we're the ones on the consulting end after speaking to you who take the value out of there, It's just you don't want to look at 1,000 statistics to find 10 KPIs to use. So.
Okay. So what is there some sort of, just broadly speaking, pricing structure that you can tell me about or that I can see?
Yes, absolutely. Our starting point is $750 a month. That's based, our hard cost on variable is based on the number of page loads every month. So if you have a client, that particular number is based on up to 50,000 monthly page loads. Aside from that, that tiers up. Of course, it gets cheaper, as you go in higher numbers. But as an example, if you had a client with 1 million monthly page loads, which is usually enterprise, depending on your circumstance, that would be 5,000 a month. But once we go above the 1 million range, what we do is we run a load test for maybe 2-3 hours on your site to verify, to get a clearer estimate to make sure we're not going over on that end. But that's the ballpark monthly. And aside from that, we have an average of 15 to 20 hours setup time. That's billed for agency rate. It's at $150 an hour. And that would also be the rate that you would have for any customizations in the future. So that would be 3 weeks. We give 3 weeks for implementation. This isn't out of the box to create, set all this up. 3 weeks on your end, 15 to 20 hours, 150, and once again, 750 starting point for client.
So for an agency like us, if we're going to do this, the only way it would make sense for us to do this is if we're setting it up like we're doing this on behalf of multiple clients. But for you guys, we're still just one agency client. So then how does that work as far as, like where we may not have one client, and I'm just making up numbers here, but we may not have one client who's doing the 50K page loads a month, but we might have 3 clients that together are doing the 50K page loads a month.
I mean, on that end, by default, it's on a domain-by-domain basis. So, I mean, the hard costs on our end is we need to look at each site and kind of tailor what's going on. So that's in the setup end. On the variable end, our prices are lower for your particular clients. If you're delivering the service to a client, we go less. I can send you a chart at the conclusion of our conversation, but we go less than we said, and I'll tell you we have quite a few scenarios. If someone gives us a large number of clients in bulk, we can give them better rates than is out of the box, just because a lot of times if their sites have a similar structure, it takes less time. But we have to, protect ourselves by default. So I'll just tell you, long story short, we are, and we do take into account, to be honest, I mean, I'm the CEO on the line, one of my partners. I'm interested in a lot more charities for our sake as a company as well. So we will be very flexible in your case. And we just have to hear scenarios and outline them cleanly, though, to give firm numbers before I can promise them. So.
No, understood. I mean, just having a sense of scale, knowing that's not the final number, so seeing that chart would be helpful. So the other is, given your last comment, what kind of work do you do with charities indirectly through agencies or directly outside of the religious market?
Outside, I'm going to be honest, I don't know. I know we have quite a few. I don't know how many companies are only charity-based. Even when you mentioned you do nonprofit and profit, I'm not sure even to clearly label you. But we have a handful I can think of. But I'll tell you in advance, our step one, if we have another meeting and we want to look at any of your traffic stats or data as sending a mutual NDA, we do this stuff to a pretty deep level, so we can't give out individual information. What we can do is we can give out case studies that are scrubbed out, and we're just, actually as of late, we've been making sure that there's no way to identify from there as well. So. But yeah, I'm not, if you can tell me if, when it comes to the definition of a charity versus, exclusively nonprofit versus, I can't give a perfect number, but we have a few as far as I know, so.
I mean, just to be clear on our end, we only work with C3, C4s, or PACs. So.
I'm sorry, can you repeat those three? C3, C4, or PACs?
Yeah, political action committees.
Oh, political.
So again, they all fall under nonprofit. None of them are religious per se, but we don't have any clients who are for profit.
No, yeah, I will say we have quite a few government-based clients. That's actually our main target market is government-based. I don't know whether the political-based, to be honest, is you can imagine a few scenarios where in the political realm having much deeper insight and information about what your competitors are doing and what's happening on your site can be used a lot strong. Yeah, it's probably as far as I can go. I don't want to give our political affiliation on that.
No. I'm not necessarily looking for your client list. I'm just trying to get a sense of your company's experience with the nonprofit market specifically as opposed to the commercial market, just because there are some things that are going to be similar, but there's also going to be some things that are going to be different as far as, what their KPIs are, what their pain points are, what their, motivating factors are. So that's really what's behind my question.
The one word I'll tell you, psychology as a whole, when it comes down to the psychology correlating it to macro level movements, such as if you're not selling a retail side and you don't have firm numbers to say what the value of a visit, you really have to hone in on something like a form, something like how many people are reading this thing that you want them to read, how can you get more people to read them, and what's the psychology behind someone leaving. I notice that I have a distracting ad on the left side of my page. I take a look at my movement patterns and see that in a lot of cases, once they're halfway through reading my let's say, a document that takes a while for them to read. You know someone's serious once they're in this portion of your site for more detailed sites. I don't want them being distracted by some shiny ad so we can, try to solicit a different product. We do a lot of scenarios along those lines, and I will tell you, a lot of it's customized when it comes down to servicing versus retail, but it's usually not rocket science on each company's end to know what the high-value segments are. But psychology is one of the big assets of knowing movement, knowing hesitation, I'm going to mention one thing I think is probably going to be very high value because we use it internally for enterprise clients, anyone that contacts us. We learned a metric that said if someone fills out your contact form and you see that they're spending 5-10 minutes taking their time, you see a lot of deletes and you see kind of their comments before they submit, that's a much higher value client who's going to take your meeting more seriously. Compared to if you have someone planting seeds with 500 different charities, they're going to basically press Control-V and write a short message to everyone. And that has been a very big metric for anyone who's looking for a few clients more high value. So.
Okay. So I guess one of my last questions is going to be, do you ever, so your pricing is based on
with us, yeah, the setup as well. Once again, that's a one-time bit. I'm sorry, Amy, you're breaking up once again. I didn't hear after you said, have you ever? No, I still can't. One more. Hello? No, I'm sorry, Amy. It's still breaking up. I'll give it a second. I'll let you know when I can. Hello? No, I still can't hear. We want to ask, sounds like we have one question left. If you can hear me, I can give you if we can do it over email or have another outside number. I'm not sure, or I'll give you another few seconds. Hello? Sorry, Amy. Do you have clients? Yes.